Mambo Vipi, what's happening? My name is Anyiko Owoko and I am a lover of art, culture and everything African. And here we grant you front row access to your favorite celebrities, creators, the biggest personalities and industry experts. Come with me, you're now a VIP. Here's why you need to stick around for the entire episode this week.
Sometimes people send us songs in very funny files. For God's sake, we're just asking for MP3 audio. Does it have a video, right? Do you have a marketing plan?
Streaming, right? Let's say just like out of the 54 countries on the African continent, only South Africa actually shows some maturity in terms of local revenues. Our friends in Nigeria, I think it's hugely driven by the diaspora. So, there are those things that you actually have to think about.
Our WhatsApps are bombarded with messages. So imagine how will you stand out from that entire crowd? Because I want to help you, but I can only help you if you give me the information. Si dawa, peana yote.
Hi guys, and welcome back to VIP Access. This is episode 2 of season 5. And this specific season of VIP Access is different because we're diving deep into the industry, talking to experts, professionals, and of course artists who are driving the industry. We're trying to understand who drives it, what does it offer, and what do we need to do to build the industry and move it forward. So one of the ideas I had when I came up with this event series, Industry Talks, one of the things that was driving me to come up with this event is you always go to places and you meet people saying stuff like, we don't even have great managers in Kenya, we don't even have great publicists, Kenyan artists are really struggling and Kenyan music is not even international. And I was like, that's not true. That is not true. I mean, we have all these professionals, we have all these publicists, managers, artists who've really, done well internationally. So what I realized is we're just missing the place to meet, to know each other, to interact, to exchange contacts. And that was the idea behind Industry Talks. So over the past 2 years, we've created a safe space where different creatives from all walks of life come in to meet other creatives and get to know who's doing what in the industry. We always have experts discussing different aspects of the industry and also sharing with us their own experience. It's not a typical panel discussion. We also have people asking questions. We have a long period of time dedicated to just the one-on-one between the audience and the speakers and the experts who come to the event. So I think this has been something very impactful, at least for the people who've come and left their feedback. I hope it is impactful for you who is experiencing Industry Talks for the first time through VIP Access. Last episode, we were discussing music streaming and revenues from that. We have great professionals in this industry. You'll be surprised. Right now, Agnes Opondo, she's on this specific podcast. We also have Beth Achitsa, who is from Orchard, also handling Orchard in East Africa, and of course, Huro, who's had a long and illustrious career in promoting artists and music distribution. All of these wonderful ladies working in the field of music distribution are on this podcast this week. We also had them on the podcast last week. We did not finish the conversation, but we are going to finish it today. So let's begin. When you go to the DSPs and open, sometimes you see a banner with an artist's new album out or see a playlist and you see an artist's picture on the cover. How do you get this? I'm not sure if everyone knows. I mean, all the artists know that, you can reach out to the DSPs. From your perspective, like what kind of pitch do you receive and you're like, okay, this one we're going to get onto the platform? What are the opportunities for the younger artists, for the smaller names, but who have great content? So what are you looking for? And can anyone get on this kind of placements we're talking about?
I think it's a cocktail of both big and emerging artists, because we've seen a lot of numbers coming from the emerging artists. And as far as asking goes, you have to support your asking with facts. And the facts are your assets. In Kenya alone, I have 10,000 artists. So you imagine if you don't provide me with proper assets, I'm not going to waste time on you, unfortunately. Why? Because then I'll have to waste time on everybody, right? So your pictures, your artworks, your lyrics, your bio, is it properly placed? Your song. Sometimes people send us songs in very funny files. For God's sake, we're just asking for an MP3 audio. Does it have a video, right? Do you have a marketing plan? Sometimes it doesn't have to be like a strategy. You have your strategy 1, goal, tactics, digital, PR. Sometimes it's just even a campaign, right? I've dropped my song. It's a love song. The campaign is about people kissing. The way Kenyans, we just love lovey-dovey things or gossip, right? Or is it like a gossip song? The story behind your song, sometimes it just doesn't have a story. It's a feel-good song, right? For example, like Otile Brown's Dusuma. That song has gone beyond even what he expected it to do, because he told the story and people just hopped onto it, and then he put people's faces on the song, and that's how it carried the song. So essentially, they might look small or big, but they do matter. Because, as I said, we have a lot of people, and seriously, you need to stand out. Now, most DSPs also have the Discover section. As an emerging artist, you can create your own playlist, user-generated playlist, add the Tier A artist on your playlist and add your songs. Most probably, when a user is listening to the playlist, they will get to discover you while listening to the other big artist songs. Then once they discover you, they click on it and it takes them to your profile. Then they will discover more of your music. So essentially, you're jumping on somebody else's bandwagon. You're working smart, right? You don't really need to work hard on that. And then research. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Research.
Just to add on what Martha has said, I think it's also important to know what campaigns are also running, because most of the DSPs will make noise about the campaigns they are doing on social media, for example. Apply for it. You never know. You could actually end up winning, because I know most of the teams in these DSPs will sit down during their strategy meetings and pitch ways to help rising stars, because rising stars are a very important component for any DSP. You cannot just be running on the artists who've already made it. You also need to have a structure for the rising stars. So I want every rising star or up-and-coming artist to understand that they are very important to our agenda. So we are always pitching ideas to management, trying to see how we can best give these artists a chance. So just understand what campaigns are running and if this campaign is compatible with whatever you're doing. So really be your biggest campaigner. Be the Lulu about your artistry, because it is only you who knows where you're going to. So understand campaigns, reach out, pitch, keep pitching, never stop, and always give adequate information. You're not Kendrick and Drake who will try and decipher what your lyrics mean. You're the only one who can tell your story. So if you just send us an MP3 file, just that, us will upload it because we have to meet our catalog KPIs. But if you give me more flesh, give me more details and help me understand what your craft is all about, then it makes my work easier. And even as an entertainment writer, it is very frustrating when I'm researching about you and the first image that comes is some weird story that has nothing to do with your craft. Artists also need to make sure that whatever is out there about you, let's say maybe you don't give me your information, but if I go and Google and see, oh, the first link is leading me to a certain press article done by a certain blog about you, that's good. But if I go there, sijui, blah, 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 spotted, drunk and disorderly somewhere, that's also difficult to help. So we get in a lot of stuff, we get in a lot of catalog. Every single day, our WhatsApps are bombarded with messages. So imagine how will you stand out from that entire crowd? Because I want to help you, but I can only help you if you give me the information. Si dawa, peana yote.
Thank you so much. I now want us to address the elephant in the room. You know, we're talking about streaming revenues and music royalties. Like, who is really making a lot of money from their streams apart from the A-listers? Yet we are the ones asking the artists to invest more in their PR and marketing and their team and whatnot. I think there are two ways of looking at this. Like, first of all, what is the potential of this, right? What is the potential? But on the flip side, how can you also leverage on your backend, on the data that you receive?
Streaming, right? Let's say just like out of the 54 countries on the African continent, only South Africa actually shows some maturity in terms of local revenues. Our friends in Nigeria, I think it's hugely driven by the diaspora. So, you know, there are those things that you actually have to think about. Martha can correct me, but I believe East Africa, generally, we're still a freemium economy, which means not a lot of people have disposable income to spend on, you know, paying for subscriptions. So platforms have to actually develop other partnerships or, you know, sell other products, which is not their primary goal, which is sort of like advertising on the platform. And that's how, you know, the people who are listening free, when the ads play, the artist gets paid, right? That's how it generally works. So we either are using subscription or, you know, it's the freemium, which is dominant in the East African market. So when you understand this dynamics, that's why you are encouraged as an artist, right? Don't look at royalties as your day-to-day income, kujibamba, to live, and things like that. We have identified that there's other opportunities, right? We have live performance, which is actually a key for most artists. So you use that to supplement. And that's why beyond you just doing the recorded music, because recorded is your selling card, right? You have a good album, then people are like, oh, can we book you for our show, right? So it means as an artist operating in this market, you cannot just exist as a recorded artist only. You have to really put in effort into the live side of things as well. And once you understand that, it means you have to create content, because I know Gute has the Jam, which is sort of like a showcase platform. And this is to help you so that, you know, if booking agents are coming through, they can actually discover you, and then you will be a happy person, because for the rest of this year, you can go to Uganda, you can go to Rwanda, because someone came through such a showcase opportunity to actually take you on the road and for you to generate more income to continue creating content. So, I mean, streaming is definitely growing, but the reality is markets like ours, they're really small. I think a few weeks ago, I saw the head of Sub-Saharan Africa Spotify saying Benelux, which is Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg, actually make more money than Africa, right? Africa, with all our population and what have you, we're not actually generating a lot of income. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom, because when you look at IFP reports, there's always sort of like a sign that things are growing. But we just have to acknowledge that, one, we are in an ecosystem where people are not yet readily paying for music. So it's really up to all of us as ambassadors who are trying to build this ecosystem to say, please, if you're signing up, sign up also to this platform, because, you know, the more people will have disposable income and they are redirecting into platforms like this, this is the only way we actually build that ecosystem. But if we all just say, oh, can you give me music for free? right? And this is what I am seeing a lot with the short form content platforms, because sometimes you will get an artist who's trying to upload directly a challenge onto TikTok or things like that, which means it's taking away, your distributor will not be monetizing on your behalf. So it's sort of like trying to also just like guard the avenues to help you collect as much revenues as possible. I mean, around here, we've also seen things like Skiza, which have been really essential. We have to acknowledge that, you know, internet and penetration is mainly in the major towns, which means your people in the other rural areas will definitely not have access to streaming, but that is also the other side of, you know, still music distribution besides the streaming platform. But I am confident if we all play our part, that revenues can grow, but the reality is it's trickles. That's why we tell artists, your royalties are not your immediate income. Rather, it feels like your retirement plan, sort of like payment plan, right? So it's not going to be all roses and what have you. So it's for us to understand this reality, and we identify how we can help each other to create more avenues for revenue generation.
I think to start off, we're at a disadvantage because the rate of internet penetration and connectivity is below 44%. So that means people don't have access to internet, they don't have access to smartphones to do streaming. On the flip side, the median age of Africa is 19 years old, meaning most people are 19 and below. And they're the people who know how to get music through streaming platforms. Essentially, for streaming, it all boils down to numbers. Numbers, numbers, numbers. Are you telling your people where to get your music? For example, when you go to shows, maybe when you're starting or when you're finishing, are you telling people get my music on so and so and so DSPs? Your merchandise is out. You can even put a QR code on your merchandise. Flyers, right? Do you distribute flyers in malls, in, shops? Are you doing that? When you do gatherings like this, are you telling people where to get your music? Because essentially, for you to get numbers, you have to direct your audiences or your fans where to get your music. As I said before, if you don't direct them, they will get from wherever they will get. And essentially, it's not targeted. Some strategies that I've seen working with artists is they boil down to a certain number of DSPs, and they say maybe 3-4 DSPs, that's where I'm going to direct my people to get my music from. And it works. Essentially, if you direct your fans, because what you tell them, the connection between the artist and the fan is emotional. The DSP will shout from KICC rooftop and say, get Martha's music. It's not the same as Martha saying, get my music, right? So you need to tell people where to get your music, right? When you drop, there's no time for sleep. Essentially, tell people where to get your music all the time. On your socials, sometimes I look at the bios, right? And then you've just written your own things over there. Well, fine, it's your social, you can do whatever you want with it. But then put a link there. It's called Linkfire. You can put different links there, so you don't lock anyone out, and a certain DSP will not feel like you sidelined them, So you can do such PR articles, right? What Agnes said before, that they do widgets as well, right? So these are links in articles or in websites, right? Are you also doing that as an artist? Essentially, streaming will only work with numbers. That's the baseline. That's the foundation. Africa, we're still rushing to catch up with technology. Then streaming came. We're still catching up with streaming. Then we tried NFT. We're still catching up with NFT. Then AI, right? So you cannot catch a break. Hence, you need to do your research. How then can I be on all these different facets? Because you can do it. You can be on streaming, you can be on NFT, and you can be on AI, right? That is digital moolah for you, right? And then what we call in marketing and media, right? Your social platforms are your earned media. You know how to package on Facebook and Instagram and X is different. Instagram is highly visual, so photos, static photos. Facebook, videos, X, words. So are you using that in the different platforms? TikTok, yourself, are you creating videos? Leave alone the influencers creating videos for you. Are you also creating your own videos? And then the DSPs, are you also taking advantage of the various assets that they have to offer? Because most of the times it's first come, first serve base, actually. It's as simple as that. If you did not come first, you're not going to be served. But again, it all boils down to numbers. The more streams you have, the better you will earn. I have artists who every quarter, they get a steady check because they have the numbers. So essentially, build your numbers, and it's not hard. As Agnes mentioned before, don't just focus on one county, Nairobi. If Nairobi does not work, move to the other counties. It can work.
Just to also add, things might look gloomy because streaming is still growing in Africa, but there's a lot of hope because even the DSPs themselves are trying to formulate affordable products. So like there are so many people trying to curate affordable products that will get these Kenyans who love freebies to actually just pay, even if it's a small amount. Because now our aim is to make music legally, affordably accessible to the mass market, right? But we hope that as the purchasing power of people keeps increasing, now we will have already built a culture of, I'm not just going to stream for free, I'm willing to pay for that subscription per month so that the money also goes back to the artist. I think we also, the tussle between TikTok and UMG, when they had the catalog pulled down from the service because they wanted to negotiate for better pay. So such things show you that this conversation about more remuneration or be able to have that culture in Kenyans, because Kenyans, you live and tell them, I have a show, naeza pata tiketi ya bure, you know. So we hope that culture will die over time, but people in the industry and especially the DSPs are working around the clock to make sure that we are able to have better revenues for the artist, not just from ads only. Yeah.
Thank you, Agnes and Martha. So Beth, I want to ask you, on behalf of the artist, in terms of using a distributor, must you have a distributor or can you also encourage artists to distribute independently? What are the pros and cons? What should a distributor do for you? And while you're at it, you can also let us know what makes Orchard different from any other distributor. Why do I need to be with Orchard and not any other distributor?
I think this is my time to say, come to the Orchard, right? So I'm happy we have a few people we have worked with so they understand what the Orchard does, right? For the longest time, it has worked with the Orchard. We just don't sign up with anyone, right? Because the more you take on people, the lesser attention you will have for like the people you are onboarding. Our goal is not to just like add you into an ecosystem, right? So that's why people like myself exist in the market, right? So that we are translating, because we are an American company headquartered in New York. Like sometimes even when you get the contract, there will be a lot of questions. Or why is not the jurisdiction in Nairobi and it's on this other side, right? So those are the things sort of like that differentiates us, because one, we are interested to actually grow your business, right? It's not just about you putting music out there and then 4 or 5 years down the line, you realize, okay, I have invested, but there's no returns on investment. So the Orchard has always been very intentional about who we work with. So we actually start with, where are you headed, and what are your plans? We start from that. We don't start from, oh, do you have bangers? No, that is not the type of conversations that we have. So I think that is what differentiates us. You're not talking to a machine, rather you're talking to a person who has the local understanding and also has a team that we can interface with. That is how we operate as the Orchard. So when you think of the Orchard, we are actually a tech company, because if you've seen the platform that we offer artists, everything is centralized on one platform. So you are able to see, this is the amount of catalog that I have delivered to the Orchard. This is my insights. My music is connecting with people in Mombasa and not Uganda, the way I was thinking of doing my trip there. So sort of like you have that information. And then I think the most other vital question is usually about accounting and payments for artists. So we always have that. So sometimes people will not understand, because as the Orchard, we're not interested in paying you $2 every day. It is expensive. By the time we are actually sending you the $2, there will probably be like another 50 cents of the dollar that has already been deducted. So we will pay you given certain thresholds and then, at given periods. So we tend to pay labels around monthly or quarterly, right? Monthly if you're actually generating a lot of income. So we don't want to sit on your revenue. But, if your music is still growing and it's trickles, then we will pay you on quarterly basis. So the Orchard's platform has all these features baked in, and you don't have to have questions about, I thought I had made X amount of money, because you're seeing, this is the amount of money I made on platform A, platform B, platform C, because we document it in that sense. And then I think also the other differentiator between the Orchard with your do-it-yourself platform, it's really just the opportunity that, if you are signed to the Orchard and you're trying to map out a strategy for South Africa, I don't have to give you half-baked information, because we already have a team on that side. So we tend to be very real time in terms of the solutions that we provide to our partners. And this is enabled by the fact that we have people in all the different markets that are important and are making sense for different artists. So I think that is the difference between just like, being signed to a distributor who has the infrastructure, and for you to also like work with the platforms. You necessarily don't have to, work with the Orchard, because there's opportunities for platforms to work with. If you already have a team and you have a project and, the Orchard maybe will take 2 weeks to come back to you on contracting, and you have another platform where you will pay $9 and then you can deliver your music, that is something you are encouraged to do. Just know that, with the Orchard, we have opportunities like where we will pitch for your music. So Martha has a wider team. So the people on the content team, sometimes you've put out your music and the release has errors. So we actually know who to call and say, how can we rectify this, right? That's the difference between a distributor and the DIY platforms. But I think generally as an artist, if you respect your craft, right? Because our model is revenue share. Sometimes people will ask, why are you taking 20%? But it is because there's a lot of other work. Sometimes people just think it's adding the music to the platform and then that's it. No, there's a lot of other works because, metadata is key. And because with the Orchard, besides, royalties from streaming, we're also collecting for you on performance rights, right? When people stream your music on internet radio, the Orchard is able to collect for you from at least 55 societies. Unfortunately, we don't have any Kenyan societies already in the system, and we understand why. But, we've had scenarios where there's been a lot of money that has been held in escrow. Because one, your metadata is wrong, right? So they actually don't know if it's Maya with an N. So sometimes this is what your distributor will do for you. They clean up the metadata. They will say, we're seeing these two artists. Are they similar, or what is the scenario here? This label delivered music with this sort of like branding. This time you're seeing the name brand has changed. Are they the same entity or what? So those are the conversations that your distributors like ourselves do beyond what the DIY platforms would do.
Just to add on that, from a DSP perspective, most DSPs are moving from DIY to distributors or aggregators. Why? Because it's easier. They have the resource to handle multiple artists. For us, they give us the content and then we push it on the platform. Now, the beauty about that is Beth knows Martha and she can be able to push or keep on consistently asking for resources for you to be given the resources on the app. Now, the other advantage to that is you can be signed up to different distributors. You can have one in Africa, one in Asia, one in the US, one in whatever else, so that they work for you. Because also different distributors give you different mileage, so to speak. And they can also interpret your data for you. Basically, put Beth to work. Because you're paying her the 20%, so ask the information, ask for the reports, ask for the placements, and then she will in turn now interact with the other DSPs.
So we want to open the floor to your questions, contributions, comments. This is an event where it's not about the panelists speaking, but also you contributing or you speaking to them. As you think about whichever questions you might have, I want to ask the three of you. So what are some of the changing trends that you've seen over the past couple of months or even this year?
I'd say there are two. The first one is how TikTok virality is influencing other spheres of the artists. So you'll find a song, once it goes viral on TikTok, it's also going to top our charts. So TikTok is a very important tool to use. If used correctly, I think it can give you those numbers that Martha is talking about. Yeah, so TikTok has shown the ability to transfer to other spheres. Please use TikTok. We've even seen non-music people like become big because of TikTok. So if, for instance, you're a creator, you do podcasts, talk about your things on TikTok as well. The other thing I have seen, and this is a beautiful development as someone who really loves the Kenyan showbiz scene, I'm really excited to see how a lot of the zillennials are out there supporting these mid-tier and upcoming artists. So the other day I went to Was a World by Watendawili. The show was packed. There's literally no place to sit. And this was not a free gig. It was paid. We've seen Costa Ojuang, Okelo Max. These people are filling rooms with fans who are singing word for word. So that trend is so beautiful to watch. When I hear people say Kenyans don't support their own, I'm shocked. Like, have you seen fans singing songs word for word? These people will listen to Anjine and sing word for word. So I love how vibrant the alternative music scene in Kenya is. It's really popping. It has a very enriched fan base. That's very, very beautiful to watch. Even the urban tone kids. I know urban tone has its own politics, but I'm really impressed to see the kind of numbers these kids are bringing in. A lot can be done to make it better, but I just love the kind of engagement that they are getting. And I hope that as the industry continues to progress, we can only get better and better, and not just better at bringing fans, but also better at capitalizing the kind of audiences that we attract. Because a fan who can sing your songs word for word, that's a quality fan. That is a very good quality fan, and you need, as an artist, to be able to capitalize from that community. Because if, for instance, you get a brand endorsement and you come and tell me, oh, this, I'm more likely to buy if I love your music, as opposed to that person who just became famous on the internet for whatever reason and they just have some ridiculous numbers. Yeah, so yeah, those two are really key for me.
I think we've seen a lot of mashup of genres. Just because you are an Ohangla artist does not mean that you cannot sing Mogidi. just because you're a gengeton artist does not mean that you cannot sing pop. Just because you're a Kenyan artist does not mean that you cannot do amapiano. Because the world is changing, I want to see my favorite artist as a versatile artist. And we've actually seen that work. We're seeing more and more people embracing a different genre and actually creating sub-genres from that. Gospel, now we have gospel hip-hop, we have gospel, I don't know if you have gospel gengeton, but well, maybe somebody here will be influenced. Then you can do that. We've been seeing that a lot, hence the birth of even gengeton, because it's a mashup of two genres. You're not limited. Maybe somebody in this room will also do a mashup of 3 genres. I don't know. Music is just like that, it's creativity. Number 2 will be appreciation of Kenyan music by Kenyans. We've, just as Agnes has said, let me add on to that. I did capacity of 5,000 at the Dome and it was full. And the lineup was 13 Kenyan artists. There was no Nigerian, there was no Tanzanian, there was no foreigner. It was all Kenyan lineup. Kenyans, they actually appreciate Kenyan music. Kenyan artists don't appreciate Kenyan fans. Because I always give a small analogy of people like asking what happened to the Kenyan music industry. Is very simple. You want to eat ugali. You go to the supermarket, maybe your favorite brand of flour is Soko. So you look for Soko, you can't get Soko. But because you really want to eat ugali, you take Hostess. You cook Hostess and you love Hostess. It doesn't mean that you're not loyal to Soko. It's just that Soko was not available when you needed it to be available. You go to your kiosk, Hostess is just everywhere, plastered. And that is what happened to the Kenyan music industry. Availability of your songs for the Kenyan audience to listen and appreciate your music. But now that is coming back because now we're beginning to develop an identity for Kenyan music.
I think I don't have so much pointers, but I think one is just, I don't know if you guys have also noticed, sort of like you will put out your single today, it's R&B, pop, and then tomorrow you will wake up and decide to do a sped up version. Is there anyone who's done that in this room? I don't know if the world is just like we are on the fast lane, but I think sped up versions are sort of like a real thing that is happening out there. So you can do one release with a different, BPM, and then a month later you decide to do sped up versions. And these sped up versions are actually, generating a lot of streams as well. So that is a trend. If you haven't sort of like caught on, you might want to research a little more about it. And then as opposed to what we were told previously, like, oh, you have to sing in English, I think vernacular or local languages are actually gaining prominence in terms of the content that is being created. So don't feel shy. Whatever language you are comfortable with, sing in that language. As Martha mentioned, music is really about the emotional connection that you're offering your fans. So that is really, really important. Whatever is comfortable for you, leverage on that. Because there's no need where you're struggling to create lyrics in English. Yet you can do, beautiful music in a local language. And I see there's been a lot of embrace of this type of music here, even with the younger generation. So that is something to just also think about as an artist as you continue creating.
You can interpret your music into other languages. How about you sing in French or in German or in Spanish? Yemi Alade has perfected that act because Africa, there's Anglophone, Francophone, other phones. Yeah, just interpret it, and there are tools with digital. Now there are tools. You actually don't have to interpret it yourself. You can use AI to do that for you. And if you have a dope producer, make your producer work for it. You're paying them anyway.
We open the floor.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for such a wonderful event. I go by Dreamfinity. I'm a singer, songwriter, rapper, and a producer as well. So I have these questions. First of all, we know that the industry is flocking each day with new content creators, new artists. And so there is always some difficulty when it comes to marketing, which saa zingine unapata tunajipackage vizuri. By the way, some of us are up to task of what you guys have told us, and it's still hard, sindio? Wasanii wengi wako hapa wamefanya hivyo. So the first question is, we always sometimes distribute individually because manze imekuwa hard task finding you guys personally, ama kufika kwa ofisi zenyu, ama websites. So we will really ask, is there any way that your policies or your systems can adjust to automative pitching? Like sahi digital world in a run in form of tunaweza pata watu wenye hiyo kazi ukweli wanakuja wana run, but can we get whereby an artist can upload and like type everything, and then the machines za hizo company like you guys do can really make the work easier for millions of Kenyan artists or artists beyond? Unaona, inaweza kuwa like inaturahisishia kazi, tunaweza ingia kwa playlist, we can make money at the end of the month or at the end of the year, good money, a good win for us, a good win for you. Ama ni aje? That's the first question. The second question is, how do we deal with bot or inorganic streams? Because we know that ukweli hizi ni vitu ziko zina mess na algorithms or zina mess na vile maybe sisi up and rising artists tunaweza kuwa tunakuwa recommended kama up next ama all of those, sindio? So how are our systems able to like do that? Thirdly, for example, I don't like comparing companies, but we have Safaricom. Tunaona Safaricom is into a lot of marketing as well as promoting talents. Like there is Chapadimba, all that. Can these companies also like spot a range of artists from top to bottom, so that can we say that tutamix good performing artists in the platforms so that we can sometimes uphold the revenue status? Labda nilikuja nikasikia huyu msanii mpya, but juu tuliarrange in terms of good performances kwa hizo platforms zenyu zinaweza to uplift. So I had those three questions. Thank you.
Well, once you sign up, you're given a CMS account. You can upload your music and you can market your music on the platform. If you are signed up through a distributor, you can ask the distributor to do that for you. All you need to do is avail your songs in the correct format, and then the system picks it up. Remember, if it's not in the correct format or your assets are not complete, the system is going to reject it. It's easier, but also we still need a human touch at the end of the day, and hence why we have teams as well that do that. However, it's already there, and we understand sometimes it's a new thing or sometimes it can be difficult to understand. So we also offer trainings and workshops for artists. Again, you only need to ask and it will be delivered for you. Number 2, even if there's a bug right now, it will be fixed in 5 minutes. So we don't deal with bots. Yeah, it's that secure. Number 3, if I understood it correctly, we start from the foundation, which is campaigns, because as much as we want to sit here and say support, it's also a business. We're running a business, right? So we start from campaigns, right? And give you the platform for curating your own campaigns, and we support the campaigns. So as much as we want to focus on shows, it's not about shows only. It's also all these other things. Now, as I said before, your numbers have to speak to you because that is what people want to see. So essentially, they're all these other things, but feedback accepted.
My name is Maya Rivenberg, and I'm the director of Kipepeo Agency, which is an artist management and booking agency. So I just want to know your thoughts on this. Do you think we're having a big divide in the industry between these two segments of artists, the ones who are going to become the mainstream and then the ones who are going to be more innovative and creative on different platforms? And how do we make sure that everyone can get compensated fairly?
I think it's very important to have a threshold for any DSP so that at the end of the day, you're running a business and you're also trying to not necessarily be discriminative, but have some form of order. So every DSP has their own threshold. Maybe what matters is how you go about it. At the end of the day, just to make sure that everyone is compensated for the streams that they get, but also you're trying to create a system where not everybody and anybody can come in and just expect to have the same treatment with other artists who probably are putting in much more, or they have more structure to whatever they are putting out. So that's very important to have. I think it is in order, if you ask me.
The thing is, the taxes are expensive as well. And also remember, your music is being listened to from different parts of Africa. And unfortunately, Africa does not have a unifying currency. We don't have a dollar or a euro because the audiences pay in their local currency. It has to be converted to a dollar, then back to the local currency. If it is T shillings to dollar to Kenya shillings. And also in terms of platforms like M-Pesa payment platforms, there's also a share. So it's quite expensive to do that. And let me pose a question to you. What is mainstream?
Mainstream would be like mass market, pretty much. Like things that appeal to a wide variety of people. Things that can come and go because of trends. People are predicting this is going to cause segmentation because the ones that will remain on the popular DSPs globally of Spotify, Apple, Deezer, Amazon, all of that. But the ones that will remain are going to be the ones who are more as probably like either with a major label, probably have, like you said, more support and teams and things behind them. But it's almost gatekeeping people who are up and coming. And in my opinion, the people who are up and coming are usually more creative and innovative because they haven't been put into boxes by these people they're working with, that you have to sound like this, you have to have this image. You know, they're still in a point of discovering and their artist development. So how do we make sure that those people will not be just left to be in these less established ways? Because we know TikTok is still figuring out, like from the example of Universal, how they're figuring out their payment models for licensing and things. So how do we make sure they don't get iced out of the playing field is my question.
The beauty about digital is you can make your own mainstream. You can be mainstream on TikTok. You can be mainstream on Instagram. You can be mainstream on radio. You can be mainstream on DSPs. So again, going back to numbers, because mainstream essentially means the number of people, right? I might not have numbers on Instagram, but I have numbers on TikTok. Then TikTok is my mainstream. I might not have numbers on TikTok, but then I have numbers on DSPs. For example, Wakadinali, when they started out, we actually saw the numbers. We were just in the office, so you should have seen myself and the team, right? So it's not impossible, right? We've been cultured to think A-list artists are semi-gods. Even you as an emerging artist, you can also be a semi-god. Why? Numbers. Because digital right now is all about the interpretation of the data that will give you the numbers. If your stronghold is, wow, I used stronghold. If your strong suit is TikTok, then you need to perfect TikTok, but also consider the other platforms. If your strong suit is DSPs and streaming, then perfect streaming. If your strong suit is radio, then figure out a way which you can, because you are a creative, of how to have a 360. We all hear about 360 deal from labels, right? Then create your own 360 and figure out your mainstream.
I also think as long as the rule applies to all, the discrimination is just a fear of the unknown. If I tell you you have to get 1,000 streams, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're Beyonce or you're this unknown artist, as long as you get to this threshold that I've given you, you'll be paid. I think it's just a fear of the unknown because, like Martha had mentioned, right now fans choose what to listen to. It's not back in the days where radio would force me to listen to Justin Bieber every top of the hour. Now I decide I want to listen to Atenda Willie right now. I want to play Costa Ojuang's song over and over again the whole day. As long as the rule is the same, we'll be okay. I'm sure we will.
If you remember, I was saying 79 million tracks, 0 streams. I think it's just a way of saying to artists, when you create your content, make sure people are engaging, right? So I think that is the key takeaway. Sort of like when you create content, just don't create it because, I want to be on playlist and then move on to create more content. Because I think if you look at a platform like YouTube, that has also been in force. Sort of like you have to get to 1,000 subscribers for you to start monetization. Yeah. So I think it's something that has been in the industry. It's just a wake-up call for artists to do more. Whatever you've been doing, do more so that you're getting your revenues.
Hi, my name is Ngare. I go by the artist name Kyria. I'm a singer-songwriter and entertainment journalist as well. And I've been on DistroKid for 3 years. I've been on Boomplay the same amount of time, but very inactive to cut it short. I just wanted to start by saying I was a bit affected. And just to be honest, when you said something about creating the music is 10% of the process, it just affected me the wrong way. And I just felt like I should say something because my biggest dream right now is to be able to release music every 2 weeks. So as an entertainment journalist, I got to interview artists from South Africa who are making headway. And something that one of them does is what you call like bundle releasing. So he'll spend half a year producing like 30 songs, and then half of that is like a remix of the first 15, release it all for like half a year. And then something else that I saw on the internet is like, if I'm releasing one song, it can be a 1-month project. So it can be a visualizer, an official video, an acoustic video. You get where I'm going. So I'm just wondering what you think of that. My second question is, I'm also a guitarist. I'm an instrumentalist, and I found myself in situations where I'm playing guitar for producers and artists. And for many years, I've been so excited to get the opportunity to play in those studios and be around those artists. And it's only recently that I've started saying, I want a contract. But when I do that, and people get very skeptical, can I have a DSP license as an instrumentalist? If so, how can I use it in a way that's efficient and not intimidating to the musicians I'm collaborating with? And then third, I know a lot of international artists are making most of their money or a lot of their money through sync licensing. Are there any sync licensing bodies in the country, and how would I go about that?
All right. Just to respond to you about the statement about production just being 10%, right? It's really to say the work does not stop when you have the final product, right? Like there's a lot of work from the point where you have the final masters. So you have to think of marketing as a bigger effort to getting that product sort of like consumed. So it's not like, don't worry about production. It doesn't count. It's just work actually begins when you have the final masters. So yes, there will be a lot of work, right? Because then you have to think about the melody, production, and what have you. But beyond that, work starts when you have the final masters. That is what I tried to imply. And then the question about guitarist and contract and what have you, I'm just wondering, when you go into studio, do you sign any form of, paperwork? Because, at studio, usually you have to sign something called a split sheet.
I actually had Aaron Rimbuyu on my podcast, and he said something so profound, which is the title of the podcast. He said, not being known doesn't mean that you're not successful. Thank you, Amanya. Someone who follows my podcast more than I do. So, and it was so interesting because he was saying, I've always been a pianist, right? I've always been the guy at the back. He was talking about touring Africa and the world with Tiwa Savage, and just how this opened his eyes, like from a jazz artist to now a pop artist. And he was like, a lot of this background creatives, they always ask themselves, when will be my time? And he had this moment when he was always asking himself, when will I be the star? But it's like, your moment is now. So when you enter the studio and you're playing that session, so you must sign your split sheets. And if the person does not want you to sign, then just walk out, because this is how you can guarantee your future. At the end of the day, when this song becomes the biggest streaming song, you will get nothing if you never sign the split sheet. So it has nothing to do with your name. And as a matter of fact, there are a lot of huge artists who win Grammys and whatever, and no one knows their names. So I think a lot of artists downplay this, but don't, because today you don't have a big name and tomorrow you do.
Make sure each time you go for a studio session, a split sheet is the least you can do if you don't get the full contracts, because each agreement will be variable. And just like to build that into the sync before I hand to Martha is, I think, the sync, because at the Orchard, we do bake that into our contracts, because when we distribute your music, it goes 3 ways to DSPs. And then we have the performance rights collection. That is what I was talking about, internet radio. And then we also have the sync. Sync, unfortunately, on the African continent is not developed, and it's majorly in the US. So it sort of like feels like a lottery. And that's why it ties back into make sure you have signed the split sheet. Because whenever the Orchard receives the rights or an inquiry from a TV show or an ad, they just want to make sure that, the back end is clear. And it's not like, oh, we will agree. And then they will be like, oh, no, we didn't agree on terms around this song. Or one party is saying, no, we cannot sync this music. So make sure paperwork is in order, because then the turnaround, it's very limited. Usually is like 1 hour to 2 hours. If you're not responding within that time frame, someone else is ready, because it's a lottery.
IP masterclass. I will try to summarize it. Now, your IP consists of 2 rights. Master right, which is mostly called sound recording, and publishing. Now, on master right is where we have executive producers, composers. Now, composers is where you're entitled to a certain right for that song. Now, on publishing takes 50%. Now, I've finished with sound recording. I'm trying to really, really compress. Publishing is when you go for shows, or when you have sync, or when your song is published. Sync is essentially if your song is used in adverts or a movie, a soundtrack. That is what sync is. So that's minimalist on publishing. Now, you can do 2 things. You can either be work for hire. So essentially sometimes you see producers are paid off. So then you do not own anything on that song. The executive producer then owns everything if they pay you. The executive producer can be yourself as the artist, or the one who's funding the project, or the producer themselves, because sometimes producers also call artists in the studio to produce, right? Number 2 would be accreditation. That is where you see a song, then there are so many names on the song. BGVs, you are a composer. The person who wrote the song, lyricist, composer. If you hummed on the song, you are a composer. If you are shaking a shaker, you are a composer. And what producers usually do, and unfortunately the ratio of beat makers to producers in Kenya is 20:1. The problem with that then becomes we have the same sound, and stealing of beats can happen, because I just need to get something off the internet. But then who's the composer behind that? So if you are a composer, one way of doing it is signing a split sheet. The other way is knowing your rights, because you can go after that person if they don't pay you or they don't give you royalties. Because guess what? Your work is accredited. But the fastest way, the easiest way, the legal way is for you to sign a split sheet. The fact that they're afraid of a split sheet, maybe they don't even know what a split sheet is. You'll be surprised. They just don't understand what a split sheet is. So essentially, do your research, explain to them what you're asking for, and then if they're afraid of a contract, is that really somebody that you want to work with? Exactly.
We have come to the end of this episode this week that has been spotlighting streaming revenues and music distribution. I'm very thankful to Beth Achitsa, Agnes Opondo, and Martha Huro for bringing their expertise to the table and right here on Industry Talks and VIP Access podcast. So today, I have an assignment for you who's listening. I want you to ask yourself, if you're an artist, if you're a recording artist, what are your actual rights as an emerging artist when it comes to streaming royalties? What steps should you take to protect your music? And most importantly, are you making sure your creative work is accounted for literally? And I have a challenge for you. Today, make sure you use your data, online tools, and global platforms to build real, sustainable growth for yourself. This is where we're going to end the show today. I want to thank all my VIP Access followers and listeners of this podcast, my day ones. I see you. Make sure you share this episode to an artist or a record label or an artist manager who would use this information. Make sure you check out Gote Institute on social media and check out what events are happening at Gote. We'll have the poster and the announcement on the Gote Institute page, or you can also check Industry Talks on Instagram. We are on there. Please make sure you leave your feedback with us and stick around, because next week we're having another awesome conversation around the industry and around intellectual property, publishing, and legal parameters around that. Ciao, ciao. VIP Access Season 5 is proudly supported by the Gote Institute Nairobi.